Hey, Danny.
Hey, Jim.
That's a great tune. It's one of my favorites. I've had several questions recently about banjo setup, and like I told you all in one of my shorts, I don't know that I'm the person to ask about setup, but Danny Stewart might be the guy.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I figure you set up banjos pretty regular. You know, I set one up, I'll leave it alone. But you set one up, and then another one comes in, and then you get to set another one up. If y'all don't know Danny is with Turtle Hill Banjo Company, and y'all, I'll leave links and stuff. Be sure to check them out. But we wanted to talk about banjo setup and just some different things that y'all can try and make your banjo sound like you want your banjo to sound. I don't know that there's a best way to do. I'll just go on the record. There's not a best sounding banjo. You know, it's like there's things that you can do that are going to work for you, and I'm going to pick it up, and it's not going to work for me. I mean, but there are things that I think we can all kind of agree on, and we can get a banjo maybe in the ballpark to what you like. So when you start with a banjo, what's the first thing that you look at?
Well, I'll tell you, there's 60 or 70 banjos here at the shop at any given time. So I've learned a long time ago to put my personal preferences aside and realize that everybody likes something different. Like you just said, banjo setup is very subjective. I may like something that you dislike and vice versa. But the very first thing that I look at would be probably the neck relief.
Okay.
The neck relief, and a really easy way that I use to check that is you can fret the first fret of your third string, or really any string, but for right now we'll do the third string, and then fret the last fret of that same string with your thumb, and sort of see if there's a little bit of clearance in the middle of the neck here. Some people put a capo on the first fret, you know, and then they fret the last fret of, you know, again, any string, and they really want to see if there's enough clearance or an air gap in there.
And people are going to ask, how much space should there be? I always just tell folks like a business card space.
Yeah, so
You know?
I do use feeler gauges once in a while, but I like to eyeball it to get the a good ballpark setup going, and I like to try and shoot for around one string's thickness.
Right.
So if you're looking here with your eagle eyes and you can see around one string's thickness, you're good to go. And you can get feeler gauges if you're really trying to see.
Right.
But if you see the strings laying on the frets,
That's definitely, or if you got a big gap, and you'll know, like when you start to play, if there's a big gap, it'll feel like it.
it'll be tough to play.
But if it's super flat, then you're going to have string buzzes.
You're going to have buzzes and you're going to be wondering what the heck's going on.
Yeah.
And, seasonally, this is something to look at, too.
So, yeah, like he said, you fret one at the first fret, then down here, and then I usually check them around the 7th fret or so.
Yep.
And the thickness of a business card, the thickness of a third string,
Yeah.
But you should be able to see some gap under
You
it.
should be able to see
Yeah.
some gap,
Yeah.
around one. Yep, exactly.
So we've got that settled. Anything else?
I guess the next thing, if I was just handed a banjo and someone said, hey, look this over, after I check the neck relief, would probably be to check the head tension.
Right. And so everybody's heard the old joke about, how tight should it be, or you tighten it till it breaks and back it off a quarter of a turn. and back in the day, that's kind of, I'm a product of the 70s, and I came through a whole generation of setup abuse. And so many of the banjos in the 70s, we tightened the heads up as absolutely as tight as we can get them. And then somewhere over the past couple of decades, we've stopped doing that. But I know that you use a drum dial.
I do.
But do you start with that, or do you just tighten it up and say, that feels right, and then check it?
Well, no, I do start with a drum dial because the drum dial will tell me right away if it's even. If it's evenly, because you could get a banjo that you got off of somebody or your friend's banjo, and it could be super tight right here and super loose right here, but a drum dial will tell you if it's even.
Now, are we in agreement that we should want the same tension all the way around?
Yeah, that's
Have you ever played with moving that around any at all?
Having a looser head here and a tighter head here? No, I haven't.
I know a couple of guys that do that, and
Interesting.
I guess I'm of the mind. Let's just get it all even.
Yeah,
It's fine.
That's the goal for me, is to get it all even.
So,
yeah.
do you have a particular number you shoot for?
Personally, I shoot for around a 91,
Right.
which should ring true to around a G sharp if you're tap tuning your drum
Right.
head, give or take.
Right. This one's a. I've tuned this one to a 92, and it's almost an 8.
Yeah.
Almost. And
Yeah.
and I also did that because it's a brand new head, so I assumed it's gonna loosen up a little bit. I only tightened that up just recently, and they do stretch out. So we've tightened the head, and we've got our neck relief set. We're happy with that. We might need to put a set of strings on our banjo.
Yeah.
What else are we gonna?
I think the next thing would be to check to make sure the bridge is in the right spot.
Yeah.
And unlike a guitar or a violin, these are not glued down, and they're really easy to accidentally bump or just have installed in the incorrect spot from the get-go, and you might be playing for a long time and not even realize. But you'll know that it's sour sounding or out of tune if your bridge is in the wrong spot. When you go to play up the neck, it'll start to sound.
Do you have a favorite method for doing that, or do you use a tuner, or?
I was fortunate enough to spend about a week with Tom Neckville. He came to the shop last year, and I learned so much from Tom about setup. And he does it like this, using the 19th fret. Right, so the 12th fret is the perfect, midpoint between the nut and the bridge, right? But without getting super geeky into physics and, the sound of physics and everything like that, the physics of sound, I should say. You're cutting the harmonic overtone series again by fretting the 19th fret.
Right. That's where I check. So I check my 19 to my fretted 19th, and that should be the same.
Exactly.
And if it's sharp or flat, we move the bridge accordingly. You definitely, if you don't know, you can start out with you don't even need a ruler. If just something a piece of string from the nut to the 12th fret and then back, and that'll get your bridge somewhere in the ballpark, and then you can adjust it with that harmonic.
Yeah.
So now we've got our bridge in the right place. What would we do next?
Well, there's millions of things to do, but I would say another good thing to do at this point would be to make sure that the tailpiece is sitting correctly, especially if a banjo's been sitting for a while, or maybe somebody just changed the strings. Gosh, these are really easy to just have off, sideways,
left to right.
Yeah, just not even be on there sturdy and straight. So I like to make sure that's on there.
It could be loose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I like to make sure that's not loose. And I start out with, this is a Presto style bridge, but I start out with the height of the Presto being kind of in the middle of the bridge. So whatever this should be around half of the total bridge height. Right. Give or take.
So 5/8 should be a little less than 3/8.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. 9/16. Yeah.
Something like that.
Something like that. So, and then, you could, again, these aren't violins or mandolins. There's a million things you can do to make them sound completely different.
So by raising that tailpiece, we're going to increase sustain. We're going to get a little more bass response. Back in the day, it was like I said, product of the 70s. We would see tailpieces pushed all the way almost down to the head to get every bit of high end that we could get. And so it would create more treble and definitely less sustain.
Yeah.
And so, and the only way that you're going to know on your tailpiece is to try different things. Yeah. Try it, start with it in the middle. And if you need a little more brightness, you can bring it down some. If you want it to be a little more mellow and more sustained, raise it up just a little bit. And when I say a little bit, I mean not even like on the Presto. You've got a nut, and not even a full turn on that nut. You can move, I don't know, 1/32 of an inch with one turn on that nut.
Exactly. I'm a real big fan of making very small, minor adjustments in everything we're saying here.
Yeah.
Repeating those adjustments as needed, but making small adjustments. Yeah.
Also, different tailpieces. Sometimes, like, if your banjo You know, Danny's in the business of selling a banjo as it is for the most part. And, you know, if a banjo came with a Presto tailpiece, it would probably be best to sell it with that. But if it's your banjo and you want to make changes, you have options. You can try a Kershner style tailpiece, which is a little heavier material, adds a little sustain. It also adds some brightness. And then there is a clamshell style tailpiece, like on some older Gibsons and these. It's a little more adjustable, but it also has its own particular sound as well. Some people like that sound. Some people want a Kershner. Some people want a Presto. And there's other tailpieces.
I see another tailpiece over there that not a lot of people talk about, the old window pane.
The window pane.
And those are really...
So, yeah, you can see...
Yeah, those are really common on early Gibsons. This is a tenor Gibson, you know, hasn't been converted yet for Bluegrass, but really common on the style 11s and 10s, and this is an old shoe bracket.
Yeah.
Those sound great.
So there's a lot of options in tailpieces, and that's just something that you can try, and you will find one that you will like. And then what about bridges? So when you're setting up a banjo, I mean, do you just grab a bridge and it's good enough?
So again, you know, they're so easy to change. I feel like whenever I'm setting up a banjo to get it to its best potential sound, I try at least 5 bridges, and one of them sticks out every time. One of them's like, and it's funny. This bridge may sound amazing on this banjo, and we could try it on yours, and it just
might not be
vice
great.
versa. So
yeah, like when I got this banjo from Peter, he sent me several bridges to try, and it's like, okay, this is the one that I wound up with.
That's great.
Yeah, because we all like different sounds. So, and I know if you're just starting out setting up a banjo, you may not have an option to try. You may be stuck with a bridge that came on it. My advice, just buy a good quality boutique bridge, and that can be from there's a number of bridge makers on the market.
One of my great friends lives up here in Maryland. His name's Chris Cockrum, and he has a great business model. He does truss rod covers. He does laser engraving, and he builds fantastic banjo bridges. Yeah. His website is cockrumstudios.com. I think he's selling them through Banjo Ben right now.
Right.
And,
they're great. I've got my Earl Scruggs Vega. I've got one of his swamp oak bridges on it, which just is like, what a weird thing. But I put it on there, and it's like, oh, okay.
Exactly.
I understand it now. So try different bridges, because each of them will have its own voice. Some bridges have more sustain. Some will be kind of nasally sounding. And I can't tell you what is the right answer on a bridge, but you have to try it. Other things that we would want to talk about, setup-wise? One of the things I was telling Danny, and I know I asked this question on my channel, is what are some odd things that you do? Is my thumb screws, I usually don't keep them super tight, just kind of loose. I don't know why. Maybe it's superstition, but it's
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I mean, I feel like, again, I keep saying this, but there's so many different things you can do to a banjo to make it sound different. I mean, we could talk for 30 minutes on what kind of finger picks we use.
Even the depth of a resonator. There were, I remember several years ago, there were adjusters that you could buy that went on your thumb screws that adjusted the depth of your resonator, and that made a difference in the sound of your banjo.
Another thing that some people tend to potentially overlook is, to take the banjo apart and expose the 2 coordinator rods and make sure that those coordinator rods are snug and tight, not too tight, but definitely not too loose, because sometimes you can be playing a banjo and this isn't, this nut or this nut on either side of the rim isn't completely tight and flush, making good contact, and it's not serving at its best potential.
Yeah, you want the neck contact to be good. Yes. And typically the way I go about it is I make sure that the contact of those 2 rods to the neck pot joint is nice and snug, tight almost, and then I keep my rods neutral.
Yeah, keep them neutral.
And just
That's right.
tighten those nuts. I
Yeah.
try not to warp that rim any.
Yes.
And I know it can be warped and it can adjust your action, but don't do that.
Yeah.
Change your bridge. Change your bridge
Yeah,
height.
there's other things you could do. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that covers a lot of
Yeah,
it. You know.
I mean,
Yeah.
that gives you a big thing. You know, that gives you some big things that you can try, and don't be afraid to experiment. There's no wrong answers on any of this stuff. Just try different things and making it. So one of the things that I know I always do is I make an adjustment, and then I live with it for a few days.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
just to make sure that I understand what I've done, and don't be in a hurry. I mean, it's just banjo, so it's not.
Well, and two, like, you know, adjusting the neck relief could take a few days for it to actually come into full effect. Right?
And one of the things that I've noticed, and maybe y'all will when you start experimenting, is string height affects your tone.
Yep. Volume and everything.
Yeah, so there's
Yeah.
just all kinds of things.
Yep.
Well, folks, thanks for hanging out with us, and y'all check out Danny's website. I'll put the link here, and if you like this sort of content, if this is helpful to you, just leave a thumbs up, leave a comment. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to get notifications. Ring that bell. We'll see y'all next time.